To you, Sally.
Yeah, no, I'm really passionate about this stuff. I saw the new curriculum and saw the new standards, and um, I actually just think it's a huge opportunity for us to do some really cool stuff. So we've been on our journey for a little while. In this session, if I can squeeze it in before 10:45, 11:45, I thought I would just give you a bit of a background on our context, and maybe why at Albany Senior we're not freaking out about the idea of unstreaming and removing prerequisites and stuff out of our classes, and also a little chat about assessment and what it does mean to assess students in 2023 in New Zealand. We've been on a journey to sort of embed the new standards and start the new curriculum since we first saw the big ideas and the key concepts back in 2021, and our course that we will run with next year in 2024 is a result of about sort of 3 years of tweaking and fiddling around. So I'll sort of show you a little bit the process that we went through, if it's helpful, and then yeah, it won't be too much of a surprise what our course looks like by the time we get to me showing you what that looks like. Feel free to just, you know, go for questions or chip in or whatever needs to happen at the time. I'll try and sort of stop after each little like chunk in case there's things that we want to kind of know about in more detail. But yeah, if there's anything else, I might just start. For our context, Albany Senior High School, we are a roll of 870. We've only got year 11, 12 and 13, so that puts about 290 odd in year 11. We're based in Albany on the North Shore, and we are open plan, much like this picture. It was taken a little while ago when the carpet was a little bit newer. But yeah, other than that, that's basically what our classes look like on a daily basis. There is not maths class next to maths class next to maths class. It'll be like a maths class next to a history class maybe. So we are teaching in cross-curricular community zones. So for whatever difference that might make. Our lessons are 100 minutes long. We are officially on the old system. We were a Decile 10 school, but because of a lot of the unique selling points around our school, we have no school uniform, we're first name basis, and we only have gender neutral toilets, and other things like that. We've actually become quite a magnet school for sort of isolated students around the area. So there's a huge amount of students coming from out of zone to us. We this year, last year, I've lost track now, have been offering the idea of doing some level 1 standards to initiate year 11s into the idea of credits, but we haven't been trying to attempt to get the whole of level 1. Not this year, not last year. I can't remember when we dropped it. Sometime in COVID, I think. And then we have, ever since the school opened, been fully inclusive, no streaming, no prerequisites in any subject at any level. And that includes level 3 calculus and classics and everything. So students can show up in year 13 and say, I want to learn this course, and we accept them in. And so because of that, possibly, and other reasons, we have a very responsive assessment practices policy, whole school, with negotiated deadlines, and the idea that the students, because they're seniors, need to negotiate their deadlines. They need to sign up to, oh yeah, I'm going to hand this in on this date, is that okay? And then they kind of do that, and it's on them, meaning that we can sort of juggle lots of different things happening at once. My department's got 7 nearly full-time. I've got one who half teaches social science and one who teaches the chemistry line, but basically it's 7 full-time teachers. And as a HOD, I decided everyone was going to teach year 11 pretty much when I took over the department. So it's a uniting course. It's where all the calc specialists have to teach year 11, all the stats specialists have to teach year 11, and it's everybody in together, and it's just a way of unifying all of us. And in our department meetings, a lot of things anchor around our year 11 course. So yeah, I like that we have everybody sort of all in with their different perspectives. So yeah, I don't know if I can see chat comments in my view. Maybe I should be able to in case you're asking me questions. Or well, Robin or Gillian, would you tell me if I needed to sort of pause or something? I guess. Hopefully. All good. Okay. So yeah, one of the contexts I really wanted to sort of one of the ideas I really wanted to sort of get into a little bit um is unstreaming, and I know that in some schools it's become quite sort of how on earth are we going to do this, and I don't think it's something that you can just go, oh, I've got my normal system of school, and wait, now SLT are telling us we can't have stream classes, so I'm going to do everything else the same. But yeah, instead of having my top stream one and my middle one and my bottom one, or instead of having my extension class and my booster class, I'm just going to do everything I normally did, but just with mixed ability. I cannot imagine how that could ever work. Um, for us, my background, I'm actually primary trained, and I did a primary PGCE in London in 2022. Sorry, 2002, and it. I don't think I've ever left the idea of a picture of a primary school classroom, and the teacher's right there with sort of 5 learners, and then meanwhile there's kids over here with their little small group, and there's kids over here doing their little small group, and there's kids who probably were at this table, but they've gone on a little, a withdrawal group somewhere else. And then in 7 years, we go from having kids like this who are just all excited about learning, to everybody like all in rows, and the only real kind of source of the knowledge or source of the information or the learning is this guy who's like way at the front, and he's got like a projector board and another board to write on and maybe another board to write on over there. And I feel like maybe if these people here had to go out of it on streaming, it would be a challenge. But I don't think she's ever streamed ever. So I just think potentially if our secondary classrooms looks more like that, it's much easier to juggle. These ones doing something kind of hard algebraically, and these ones doing something more pattern spotting in the same topic but at an easier level. So we can cater better if we're working in small groups. Ashes has been mixed ability, no prerequisites ever since it opened. So it's kind of a way of life for all of us. But I think if I pin it down, the aspects that we've got at Ashes that makes mixed ability teaching just our way of being. And I don't know if you've got any influence over SLTs or school leaders in any way, but I don't know if having, I think we've got 100-minute lessons, which helps because we have got time in 100 minutes, it's an hour 40, to work with the one small group, work with another small group, have different students doing different things, and I've got time to get around all the classes. If I was in a 40-minute lesson, I can't imagine with 25 students whether or not I'd have time to go to each group and see each group and check that they were all making progress. So I think the long periods helps. We've got to focus at the school, especially with our seniors, on their own learner agency, and it's a focus in the Kahayako around students in the primary schools building up their agency so that they know that they've got a responsibility to do some of the research. There's a little bit of flip learning happening across Ashes as well in my department and outside, where students are asked to do something before they come to class. A little bit of, well, if you haven't mastered that skill yet, you could wait for me and I could explain it, or you could watch this video, or you could find that instruction sheet, or we've got a lot of online resources which we built up during COVID, which we refer the students to so they can do their own research before they absolutely need to have the information explained by me specifically or by the other teachers in the department. And they set their own goals as well as to, like, in this 3-week period of learning, which of the objectives do they need to get to have met their learning goals. So some of them will need to get all the way to the excellence criteria for something. Other students will just aim to try and only do the achieved criteria in that same window. So we can have students aiming at excellence and aiming at achieved in the same space at the same time. Am I talking too quick? This is so strange, just being only one directional. Are we all right? Questions so far?
You're fine, Sally. You're fine. It's
It's
good.
so strange. I can't see anyone nodding or anything, so I just have to. I'm pausing to look on the screen to see what you guys are doing. It's like back to teaching, yeah, year 11s with all the cameras off. Yeah, and adjustable timelines as well. We've got some systems in place which allow students to do their assessment anytime, anywhere. So, if we take an example, level 3 trigonometry modelling assessment. We don't say you've all got to do this on the 5th of May. We'll have some students that have been aiming to work on just getting the achieved criteria, and they are, they set themselves 5 weeks to try and figure out the parameters of the trig model so that they can just model it and answer a simple achieved question. And I've got other students who are aiming to try and get excellence in it, but they might not all be ready at exactly the same time. So we've set up the assessment so that one student can do it on one day, another student can do it on another day, another student can do it on another day, and the security of the assessment's not compromised, because it means that way we can have different groups of students on different workflows, which I know is a little bit of a mind blown for, I think, sometimes some SLTs kind of really fix your year plan a little bit. So yeah, that kind of leads into the idea of assessment and what we're trying to do when we're doing assessment. Our analogy that we kind of use widely to try and help people figure it out. Imagine it's like the students doing their learner driving theory test. It's not like they have to do it on the 5th of May. They kind of decide when they're ready. When they've got their why of I desperately want to learn to drive and I need to pass my driving theory test in order to do that. They then get their kind of study book or they sign up to their online things and they do their learning, and then they trot along to the AA whenever they need to, and they book a time that works. And presumably, if they wouldn't book it until they were feeling confident that they were going to do okay. And that's kind of the whole school Ash's idea around assessment, is that we don't want you starting to do an assessment if we don't think that you're okay. How do we manage authenticity with the unassigned assessments? Yeah, so I've got it on that slide. The next bullet point really is around that. We're trying to, depending on the assessment, we go down different tracks. So for that level 3 trig modelling one, we have a whole load of different contexts, and within the context where numbers are different. So we'll have a fairground ride version A, fairground ride version B, but then we'll also have a tide times version A and a tide times version B. I think at the last count we've got sort of 6 or 7 or 8 versions of different assessments kicking around. So the culture's almost been broken after a few years, because they now don't think to ask their friend what was in the test, because the probability of them getting exactly the same one as their friend is so low. And actually the pressure on having to do a test on this day and I don't think I'm ready, so I need to cheat, is much lower, because they're actually quite agentic around, I want to do this assessment and I know that I understand it well enough. When they think that they're arriving knowing that they understand it well enough, the idea of needing to cheat has almost, the culture's kind of gone. That's not to say it's disappeared completely. So again, one of the other ways we really manage authenticity is because we got a lot of opportunity to do small groups. We will get alongside any student that says, hey, I want to do my test next week. And we go, can you show me your practice assessment that you've done and talk me through how you've done that, especially if the student's been quite quiet and just sort of worked away and they haven't been at me or at their friends all the time going, how do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do this? So yeah, we try and work alongside them in partnership so we understand what they're likely to be capable of in a test-based assessment. Some of our assessments are outcome-based, some of them are design ones, like if you're going to build a deck or you need to design a new wallpaper for a transformation geometry thing a couple of years ago. it was a design thing, so it's outcome based. They've all got the same task, but you know it's theirs because they've had to say, I've chosen this because it's like this, or I've chosen this because it's like this. How does it work with an overview of calendar and content to cover? Yeah, I'll have a look. Maybe I'll answer that question. I may answer that question as we go. It may make sense. If not, I can figure that out at the end. So yeah, those are our assessment sort of the vibe around the assessment. So we may be doing things quite radically different already, which then meant the new standards came in, and we kind of were like, all right, what can we do with this? But these ideas around assessment and around streaming are happening across the school in all the departments and in year 12 and 13 as well. But yeah, there's definite ways. I'm happy to work with anyone or share other assessments that we've got, ways that we can break down that idea of a test has to be on a particular date. So the title of this thing was about level 1 NCEA and what we've been doing. So our process, without too many details, back in 2021, I think PPTA negotiated some accord days, and I had a look back through. It was on the 2nd of August. And we watched the video with the team who were writing the level 1 review of the standards, and they were talking about what the big ideas and the sort of key concepts needed to be, and they were talking about sort of how maths is a thing that we use for purposes, and that it all needed to be really clearly embedded within authentic context. So having watched the video, we had a whole day of PD. I then printed out all the big ideas onto these bits of A3 paper, and I had my team. We just tried to really think, what does that mean? How does that look in the context of school and in context of what we want our students to be able to do? Those big ideas are not content-led. They're very much conceptual, what it is to be a mathematician type leading. There's a couple that sort of talk a little bit more towards algebra, a couple that talk a little bit more towards stats, but they're quite wide-reaching ideas. So we did that on the whole morning of one PD session, so that my team really understood what those big ideas all are. And then we went, well, okay, if we've got this new opportunity, how can we have, I don't know if you can see this, but these were a couple of slides I shared with my team on that day. The idea I had, like, how can we have some modules of learning that would somehow teach all those big ideas and the important content and the important things that we need to know, so that deep learning would come out? And what would those modules of learning look like? What would those themes need to be to ensure that everything that we want covered would end up being covered? So as humans that love maths, we see maths everywhere. So I'm thinking, gosh, we could do a cool thing about like sports and games and people that do Minecraft. That's something where there's loads of maths in there, and there's loads of maths in the environment, there's loads of maths in the economy, and we see maths everywhere, but the kids don't necessarily see it everywhere. So we had to try and think, what themes could we build a course around that would inevitably end up with all that maths coming up? We then did a bit of blue sky thinking, I guess, if that's the phrase. And we got lots of books of paper out, and we did lots of all of those ideas, just spill them all out on the paper. So we had like a sports kind of an idea, and we thought projectiles is a cool thing, and you can do this catapulting thing, and baking's good because there's numbers and there's ratios, and you could have a cooking competition, and also sometimes you want to do landscaping. People might want to build a skate park, and there's DIY and bridges and climate change and fishing and computer games and tax and money and like all of the ideas, because maths is everywhere. And then I think just remember here, there's 2 post-it notes on this whiteboard at the time, because we had like a swear box if anyone accidentally said the word standard in that time, and if anyone accidentally said assessment in that time, they had to put lollies or cash or something like that in the square box, because it was like, no, we're doing this for actually maths, and then we'll worry about the standards and the assessments later. So I just saw that there. So yeah, and then the cutting room floor happened, and we did a little bit more. I think we ran out of time on that one day, but then we came back in our departmental meetings over the next few weeks, and we ended up with 5 kind of broad areas that we wanted to hit in 2022. We had a big feeling that we wanted to do something around climate change and looking after the environment, and analysing data about the environment and maybe sustainability and sort of perhaps traffic and pollution. We weren't really sure, but we just thought there's going to be loads of data there, and we kind of thought that might be more of a kind of a stats angle, engaging with data and real life data. We thought there should be something probably around money and budgeting and investments, and making sensible purchases and car loans and things, and also spreadsheeting and stuff. So we thought that needed to kind of be a unit. We thought there wanted to be something to do with physics and showing that maths was connected up to engineering. We wanted to do like a bridge building competition, where you have like a limited amount of budget, but you've got to try and make a bridge out of popsicle sticks or something and see how much the biggest load could hold. We thought there was a whole lot of maths within there. Open-ended design tasks, optimizing your resources, so redesigning your bedroom, or something to do with DIY if your parents' deck needs an upgrade, building a skate park, something like that. Connect up to the design department, doing something to do with 3D printing maybe. And then we had our projectile motion, which was quadratics and sports, and D&D and Minecraft, alongside dice games and simulations and things. So we had this idea that it would all be to do with like games and games that you would play, and we'd weave some of the stuff, some of the math stuff through that. So yeah, that's kind of where we were in the middle of 2021, getting ready for 2022. Then we had to think about Te Māori and what the Māori worldview would be around our what we thought was very important five themes. So we did some research one week on what would the Māori themes be, and how could we actually weave our unit that we had, weave some sort of more out there context through our thoughts. So we did do that. And we also did get the big matrix, which was the big ideas across the original learning matrix. This is one from 2021. And these were all the little bullet points that they said were all the different things that we needed to learn. And we need to make sure the students had an opportunity to learn. And then we mapped it with the ideas, our 5 ideas, to check that we weren't going to be leaving anything out. So like the geometry section ended up being quite green, because quite a lot of that geometry section was going to be covered in this problem solving open-ended design kind of unit, but there was also blue in the geometry unit, meaning that we were going to also touch on the geometry stuff while we were doing this bridges and buildings. So there's Pythagoras sticking around and trig and stuff. And so, yeah, we tried to make sure that we sort of had everything kind of covered, and we noticed that some of our units were much more spread out across different strands than others. So the statistics one was kind of quite niche, but yellow, which I think is the number and money and rates and investments, we sort of thought was going to sit in a lot of different places. So we wouldn't just teach an entire number unit, because the number is going to fit kind of all over the place, really. I think now, we did this in 2021, I think people keep saying now that the Ministry have now produced like content cards and downloadable grids where you can get all the objectives that you need to teach in year 11, and they've done this like cut out and keep resource where you can move the different like bullet points around and go, okay, well, we can put those in that unit, or we can put those in that unit. we did it before they designed one of these handy cut out and keep grid things. But yeah, I do think there's some stuff online where you can print it all off and then move the things around, going in that unit will cover those things, and in that unit will cover those things. So you don't have to just teach algebra all in one and then measurement next term. Right, so then we got to the end of 2021 and I think we taught it. And in 2022, we taught the course. I think we did it in that order. We did 10 weeks on Guardians of the Planet, and we weaved into that 91035, 91036 multivariate and or bivariate, depending on if the students wanted to collect their own data and do a bivariate study, or if they wanted to engage with data that we gave them. We didn't mind whether or not they handed in bivariate, whether they handed in multivariate, but they were all sort of working on doing a statistics report in that time. And again, I think the authenticity around the assessment is it was negotiated with us what their statistical question was going to be and how they were going to sort of attack it. And again, some of them were doing it very much at like a basic achieve level. Some of them we did assess infants at level 2 in the end because they were really, really, really deep into climate change data. We did do the number unit, and we had 91026 at the end as a number assessment to do with interest. It was probably a fairly standard assessment in the end. But as we've been teaching it, we've been sort of weaving some of those other ideas from the matrix through. But in the end, they ended up doing something about, is it cost effective to put solar panels on a roof? And again, different versions of the assessment so that different people could do it at different times. I think COVID might have been a problem, or I think staffing or something. Bridges ended up on the cutting room floor in 2022. We didn't manage to get to it. We did teach Pythagoras as part of the open-ended design problem task, but we didn't end up managing to get all the resources and all of the bridge building stuff through in 22. So we just sort of skipped blue out and went straight to green. And that one had 91030 in there. What they were doing was designing a little tiny town unit. So each student had a little different building in the tiny town. So someone was doing the police station, someone did the fire station, someone did the school, and then they had to sort of design it and work out how much filament was going to be needed if you were going to 3D print it. Because we've got a 3D printer down in the tech room, so we could take them, show them how the filament prints things out, and then they came back and had a look at worked out all of the maths and what it would need to look like when you build it. And then that was all kind of done and dusted by maybe early term 3, I think. And then the rest of the year was no compulsory assessments. Some of them could opt into either doing TEG or charts and data, and then the class kind of split into either we're looking at mainly projectile motion and everything to do with quadratics, or charts and data probability type stuff. Then we reviewed the course. We decided they got stuck really in the weeds on the measurement topic. It went for ages because they were just absolutely determined to, the idea of modeling for measurement sort of went by the wayside, and they were absolutely in detail trying to work out every last little bit of filament that was ever going to be needed. And we wanted to experiment with actually having a bit more intentional algebra through the course, because the students who tried to do projectile motion at the end of the year, we hadn't managed to focus enough on the linear algebra, even though we knew that it was here and that it needed to happen in like this unit and this unit and this unit, which were like predominantly then the algebra needed to happen in this bridge building, which we ended up cutting, and there was supposed to be some exponential functions in the number side of it. We just found that we hadn't really got enough algebra done. So this year we've swapped out measurement and we put linear algebra in, and taught the course again. This was the course we taught this year. We flipped the order around and we did percentages and number and budgeting and spreadsheeting first. Then we did a sort of more algebraic focus on, we brought the projectiles up and forward, and we did some best by the typical linear algebra topics, really, middle of the year. The idea behind that was we were planning to do the CAA, and any year 11s that had come through the woodwork in our number unit as being likely to struggle with the CAA, and that we didn't think that they were going to do it easily. We had a plan that when the algebra started to get into quadratics, we were going to break the class and have a smaller group working on, well, whichever size group, a group working on quadratics and another group working just on sort of embedding the basic number skills ready for the CAA. We didn't in the end because we were the school that had the measles outbreak, and we were hardly here, and it was all carnage. So in the end, we cancelled our CAA this year, and we didn't offer it, and our students all got their numeracy through tag standards this year. So we made sure that they got number, and some of them got multivariate and bivariate if they didn't pass their new algebra. Most of them got number and a new algebra and a stats internal and just got their numeracy that way. But yeah, we didn't do the CAA this year for logistical reasons. And then we've been doing stats most of term 3. And then once they've handed in their stats assessment, they could either work towards TEG exam, or if they didn't want to work towards a TEG exam, because they weren't planning on taking maths next year, they would work towards maybe stats concepts ready for doing stats in year 12, or some of them, the ones who weren't taking maths at all next year, usually most of them needed to still continue working on one of their internals that they had not quite finished. Okay, breathe, Sally. So the course in 2024, basically, we're going to run with a very similar model this year, except instead of this number kind of focus around spreadsheeting and 91026, and then a linear algebra kind of focus around best buys and things like that. We're going to sort of swap out all of that learning around number, linear algebra, and measurement, probably towards a extended tiny town activity where we're working out, I know, best buys on where we obtain the right filaments from, and continue with our 3D printing theme to try and build up enough evidence for some sort of tiny town activity towards 1.2, and then we'll swap out 91035, 91036 for 1.1 and just do an extended 7 weeks of, this time they'll have to do both. They'll have to do a bit of bivariate data analysis and a bit of multivariate analysis. And they'll get to the end and they'll have done 1.1. At this stage, we're not planning on doing any of those exams. Yeah, we're not planning on doing any of those exams, just because I don't quite know what they want to look like. And we've had some quite good times this year in term 4. We've got traction with the students on, look, it's not important that you do the exam, it's important that you do learning ready for year 12. What are you taking next year? And some of them were going, oh, I'm taking maths. And they were just quite happy to work on prep skills that they will need for level 2 maths, and they saw that as a really purposeful thing that they could do in term 4 that didn't have an exam pressure. And same story on the stats side, they were quite happy to learn what normal distribution was because it's going to be something that's useful for next year, without necessarily having to spend time working on the charts and data exam. So we will probably just offer the 2 internals next year, and we'll do the same thing as the algebra starts to get hard. We'll have some groups working on support tasks for the CAA. I believe CAA is either here in middle of term 2 or on the end of term 3, around sort of school prelims. Answer that question. And I think that's my last slide. Oh, and yeah, just in case anyone's worried, when they changed the big ideas and the key concepts from 6 into 5, which was sometime earlier this year, we did go back in tech that we still have the majority of the curriculum covered. Yeah, that's my little thing about numeracy and how we were going to get to numeracy. And I tried to go quick in case there was space for chat So I'd much rather talk than go one way. So that's my end, I think. I can go back through any of the other stuff if there's thoughts.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Sally. It's lovely. You gave a very interesting. Well, the journey is about 3 years long now, isn't it? And it was a very big journey. One of the questions which I think may be on lots of people's minds was a teacher, JBUC, wanted to know about parents. So if students set their own level of achievement, what input do the whānau have? And what about parents wanting excellence and students aiming for achieved?
Well, more likely the other way around. Often we'll have parents going, "Oh, it's fine, they just have to do whatever." But the students are like, "I think I can do it. I think I can do it." I think if I go back, the feeling in our school, I think partly because we have 11 and up, and it's kind of quite a lot pitched as intermediate, and the intermediate schools, that when you're in senior high, it's going to be your way of being before you go to uni. So we really pitch even on enrollment that once you move into the senior school and you're in year 11, 12 or 13, this is your personalised plan. So you're going to work in partnership with your teachers and your parents to kind of make your plan that works for you. And we have 3-way learning conferences at the beginning of the year where they sort of set their goals. We don't have much sort of dissent between the student and the parent. More often we would have parent and student combined, who both are really, really wanting to kind of get excellence and get into engineering. And we might have to be trying to have a conversation, possibly similar conversations to schools who stream about, oh, well, no, they're not in the extension class because the speed that they need to learn is whatever. We would have conversations around, I really think we need to work on focusing on the embedding the achieved skills first. And once we've really got all those achieved skills all mastered, then we can start to add in extra complexity. Yeah, definitely that assessment's still available. You don't have to do it now. But yeah, I suppose it would be more like trying to set students not unreal. I don't think they have unrealistic views of their possible achievement, because we really have a huge growth mindset at Ashes. So we believe everyone is capable of doing excellence. It's about the amount of time that it might take them to get to that point. So we might say, look, if you really, really need to pass all 3 level 3 calc externals, for example, think about timetabling yourself into double maths, or think about giving yourself extra time after school to embed extra learning, because with your normal amount of minutes per week of maths, going from what you know at the moment to there is a really, really ambitious learning goal for 1 year. But yeah, does that kind of answer the question a little bit? Sometimes we do say to parents, if the students wants to do it again, we always follow the rule that every student's allowed 2 attempts at an assessment. So if students gone a bit lazy middle of the year and just handed in achieved, parents want excellence, and the parents are contacting teachers saying student really needs to get excellence, we might say, well, there's another opportunity. You can convince your young person to put the time in, we can offer them another opportunity to do that at a higher level. But these were the reasons why it wasn't at a high level yet. Would we only have 200-minute lists? Yeah, we do. We just have one in the first half of the week and one in the second half of the week. But there is time. We have really long whānau time. So we also have 200 minutes of tutorial where they're with their tutor teacher. They're not with a subject specialist, but they are able to action and forward some of their learning. So they'll be encouraged to carry on working on some of their maths in tutorial, or working on their classics essay during tutorial. So as a tutor teacher, I have about 19 in my tutor group, and they are all setting their own learning goals for tutorial time. We need to negotiate something for our business plan, or we need to do this English thing, or I need to go and record my speech, or whatever. So they have other time in the week to work on maths, but not necessarily with their maths specialist teacher in front of them. I'm just scrolling through comments. Is there anything, Gillian, I should respond to?
So that I think that people are very interested in how the school is really seems to be quite different to perhaps where they're working at the moment.
Yeah.
So they're asking about whether there's a buy-in by people who come to you, I think. Yeah.
Potentially, yeah. I've got authenticity. I think I've covered in authenticity. How does this work with an overall calendar year? Yeah, no, we don't have much pressure from SLT on by this date in term 2 you've got to have a standard done. Generally we end up most of the students would have something done by the end of term 1, only because it's really good to motivate the students by getting them some success early. But you know, if there's a student that's not handed theirs in yet, when it comes to reporting, if there's an empty box on the thing, the tutor teacher or the subject teacher will obviously have communicated with the parent as to why that gap is missing. So parents usually don't mind that there isn't a grade there. It's not that the child's dead to the world and we didn't know that they existed. It was just they haven't actually handed their work in yet because it's 70% completed. And then we'll liaise with the parents around that. So we don't have much SLT pressure in that way. Students at their own level, excellence. CAA dates. Thanks, Robin, for your comment. Yeah, I definitely share the presentation. I'll try when we go offline, I'll add like hyperlinks if I can and make the documents visible, so that you can click on the slideshow and actually look at some of the docs in a bit more detail if you want to, rather than just the little screenshot pictures that were on my slideshow. School's a bit of a magnet for whānau and outcome. We're looking for stats learning. Does that help with self-management in the classroom? Using the level of agency effectively seems to be needed to follow. Yeah and no. Definitely there are some students that just naturally like have buy-in. We have some students that do come all the way from across Auckland to specifically join us in some way. We're more a magnet for the trans community and for definitely trans community, anxious and neurodiverse students who need a sort of more personalised plan. Not so much particularly a magnet for parents or teachers who are used to Montessori. We have had some students come through who've done Montessori primary and they've specifically seeked us out because they think that our model is going to be like complementary with the Montessori primary model. But no, it's more the wraparound services that we offer for neurodiverse learners, autistic and ADHD especially, and the trans community as well, because we have no uniform and all our gender neutral toilets. They don't like, if you're in a boys' school and you don't want to wear boys' school uniform, they will happily get in the bus for an hour and a bit to get to us. So that's one of the reasons why we have a lot of students out of zone. But the year 11s are not as good at learner agency as the year 13s by any stretch. We do a lot of teaching them how to take responsibility, and that happens in the tutorial times as well as doing our specialist subjects. So by the time they're at the end of term 1, every specialist teacher's been talking about, okay, what's your goal today and how are you going to forward that, and in tutorial we say, what have you been working on in these subjects? What do you need to work on now to be ready for your next lesson? We make them go through their Google Classrooms and find tasks that aren't finished, and they go, oh, maybe I should work on that a bit more. So we really are always trying to kind of teach them how to do those agency skills so that they will gradually build them, but they're not a done deal by any stretch. But I think our open planness does really help with the small group teaching, because if you're over here and you want to talk to all 30 of them for 25 minutes about the finer points of quadratics, the teacher over here that's teaching about the Māori land wars is going to be like, when's that teacher going to stop talking? And so actually kind of small group voices is much more normal, and you just hear groups all around, all just sort of talking with each other rather than one voice sort of talking to many. So yeah, that's probably what facilitates the groups more. Examples of introducing that level. So. Yeah, no, the learner agency training, we use a lot of Derek Wenmuth videos, and a number of us in the staff, I'm one of them, has done some research and uni papers in learner agency and developing learner agency. There's some cool resources. Kate Friedwald uses a lot of resources to develop agency. She's a primary learning facilitator. One thing I just recommend anybody does, though, if you're ever teaching any year level and you're like, these guys cannot manage themselves, they're too young and they're not going to be able to do it until they're older, go watch a primary school and see what the year 5 can do, because those primary colleagues are nailing it. Like, very rarely would they try and talk to all 30 of their like little year 5s all at the same time, but those year 5s will be able to, you know, tell you what they're learning about and tell you what they need to do as their next steps. And man, if they can do it when they're in year 5, how come they like unlearn it by the time they get to us in year 9 or year 10? So I think it's more about trying to remind them about what they used to do in primary school, a little bit.
Well, that was lovely, Sally. And your answers, you know, they showed that that it's really working for you guys. I know that people they worry about what will happen when they unstream, and I think that you have you've taken quite a few things there and explained the way that you did them, so people might feel a little bit more prepared perhaps now if it's going to happen to them. Let us hope. And hopefully, Sally, everybody is saying, you know, that was really lovely, your discussion. So you be prepared for people to email you. I think that when they
absolutely, I put on the reason I didn't really think it was particularly relevant that we're in Albany, other than if you're anywhere near Albany and you ever want to come and visit and hang out or whatever, it's doors open policy. So yeah, just come if you can find your way out for an afternoon or whatever. You're always welcome to come see, and you won't see perfection and it will not be as neat and as tidy as any of this, but you'll see us as a team doing our best to breathe life into unstreaming and having a growth mindset about what those young people can do, because I think absolutely core is we have to believe that they can, and if we believe that they can, then they will believe that we believe that they can. When I did my research back in 2000, I think it was 18, I did a lot of student voice, and one of the things that really came through was the students was like, I'm not really quite sure if my teacher should be trusting me to make these kinds of decisions about my own learning, because they'd lost confidence. They'd been so used to being told, you don't know best, you can't make that decision, that some of the students had got to, well, I can't do anything until someone tells me what to do, because I've been told, oh, I got that wrong. Actually, when they've got adults around them, they're like, well, you know best. What are you in the mood for doing right now? Do you want to practice something that you know already? Or is it a good time for you to learn something fresh? They go, are you sure you're going to trust me with this? But then gradually they realise, they are people that know themselves best. They know that in the morning is a good time for learning things or not, or the other way around.
So thank you, Sally. I'll have to draw it to a close.